the Illinois Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Coordinator at the Illinois Department of Public Health. And also joined on the phone tonight is my colleague Isha Fatak, that is the EHDI Specialist at the Division of Specialized Care for Children. And tonight we're going to try to share a little bit about the Illinois EHDI system with you, as well as some exciting updates and information that we haven't had the chance to share in a while. So on the initial slide, you're seeing myself, probably the 40-year-old Campbell Soup kid on the left is me, and Isha is the more stunning one on the right. So she'll be joining us here, but we'll be able to tell you a little bit more about ourselves as we get underway. But Carrie, we'll turn it back to you for the initial questions. Good evening, everybody. As I said before, my name is Ginger Mullen, and I am an audiologist by training and the EHDI coordinator at the Illinois Department of Public Health. I started my career in pediatric audiology, and then in 2005, I joined the Illinois EHDI team. First, I was at the Division of Specialized Care for Children, and now at Public Health. And my goal today is to show you a little bit about the Illinois EHDI system, but I have to warn you that we're putting the cart before the horse just a little bit, because today I'm going to talk a lot about some data and some of our outcomes in the EHDI system. And that's just because we were unsure due to some personal issues who could be on the call tonight. But I do believe later in the next few months or early fall, my colleagues from Specialized Care for Children will jump on and do another presentation and hopefully fill some gaps and continue to answer questions for you. Tonight, I do have some slides that I have placed in the PowerPoint that say questions, so we'll pause at moments there for folks to ask questions. You can also put those questions in the chat box, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go through. As with any of our presentations with the Illinois EHDI system, we want to acknowledge the fact that our work is supported by the Health Resource and Services Administration, as well as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. We are currently lucky enough to be funded by both of those entities. So I want to take you back to kind of where things got started, and they did get started back in 1999 with the funding that came through the Health Resources and Services Administration. Due to some landmark research by Christy Yoshinaga-Itano that showed if we actually screen the child prior to 1 month of age, have them diagnosed by 3 months of age, and in early intervention by 6 months of age, their social, emotional, educational, and communication development can be got on track with the normal hearing peers by kindergarten. So the federal government in 1999 authorized for funding to support newborn hearing screening or universal newborn hearing screening in the state. So in 1999, Illinois applied for the funding, received it, and later passed our public act that requires every birthing hospital in the state of Illinois to provide newborn hearing screening to every live birth. You can opt out of newborn hearing screening, but that's only based on religious exemption. Our law has pretty much been unchanged, except for the fact that our administrative rules were changed in 2007. Otherwise, the law that was written in '99 said we had to have all the hospitals up in screening by December 31st, 2002. So that means our first full year of screening in the state of Illinois was 2003. So that would have been one of our questions there. We're going to move on to the next slide here. Where it all began was in a think tank, and I had the opportunity and the honor to be at that think tank back in 2000. And lots of folks had lots of different ideas of what they thought this program should look like in Illinois. So we're going to talk to you about what it ended up shaping up like. What they decided, not only in Illinois but across the country, is that every infant born would have a hearing screening no later than 1 month of age. that all infants who didn't pass inpatient hearing screening would have diagnosis no later than 3 months of age, and infants with a hearing loss intervention would begin no later than 6 months of age. So that's where we started, and obviously you can see the direct tie to Dr. Christy Yoshinaga-Tano's research. In more recent years, our new frontiers have been adding to our aim or our purpose of the EHDI program, providing parent-to-parent support for families of children with a hearing loss and improving social, emotional, developmental, and educational outcomes for children with a hearing loss. Now in our state, we're a little bit different, and any of you who can recognize up in the top right corner those three
has arrived.
May recognize those three fairies as being from Sleeping Beauty. So we often joke that in Illinois, we have 3 state agencies playing together. At times we can be cantankerous, but we do get along very well, and we are striving to meet the goals that were set out in the initial aim. The 3 state agencies involved in Illinois EHDI are the Department of Public Health, and that's where the Center for Disease Control and Prevention Cooperative Agreement is housed, and we specifically work with the birthing hospitals on screening and the data systems to be able to monitor and track all the screening, diagnosis, and intervention. But our primary focus is on the front end of 136. Then the second organization or state agency involved is the University of Illinois at Chicago Division of Specialized Care for Children. They currently receive the Health Resources and Services Administration grant, and they do specific work related to systems development and quality improvement, and then reducing loss to follow-up at the time from not passing hearing screening to diagnosis. So they center around the 3 of 136. Then finally, the third agency in Illinois is the Illinois Department of Human Services Early Intervention. Through their 25, and I apologize, that's a typo, 25 Child and Family Connection offices, they work on making sure that every child with an eligible condition has the access to early intervention by completing an individual family service plan. Now, it sounds like a lot of agencies involved in Illinois EHDI, but it actually comes down to a very limited staff to take care of the approximately 155,000 babies across the state born every single year. That translates into almost 2 million babies that have gone through the EHDI system since its inception. Our 3 state agencies at the Department of Public Health, we currently have 5 full-time staff and 2 GPSI student interns. One of our positions is vacant, and that's pretty common for us that every 12 to 18 months we have a vacant position that can take us equally as long to fill at times. At Specialized Care for Children, they have 1 dedicated staff member, and that's Isha, who's joined us here tonight, and then they have an administrator who helps to oversee the grants as well as other program services at DSCC, who is Jerry Clark. Finally, at the Illinois Bureau of Early Intervention, the Bureau Chief currently is Ann Freiberg, and Colleen Cunningham takes the lead for interacting with the EHDI program. However, neither of these staff are full-time or dedicated to EHDI, so we have pretty small staff. To get a lot more information than we're going to cover tonight, I welcome everybody to go to our website, which is illinoissoundbeginnings.org. Hopefully you've been there before with all the webinars and great recordings, as well as newsletters that Carrie puts up, or works with Isha to put up, I should say. Let me move to the next slide. I'm going to move pretty quickly through some of this, but for those of you who don't know, the Department of Public Health really works to maintain optimal health and safety in communities. We do a lot with prevention, health prevention and promotion, regulation, and control of diseases and injuries. So that's how you can see why we're a screening program at the Department of Public Health. IDPH was organized in 1877, so we have a long-standing history as well as over 200 programs that work out of the department. We do have a website. It's currently getting added to almost daily because we had a major revamp recently, and you can access public health website at dph.illinois.gov. We do have a special page on that website for newborn screening. Newborn hearing screening is considered part of newborn screening, which is the genetic, metabolic, and blood spot testing. These pages are still in development for hearing, so again, I encourage you to go to illinoissoundbeginnings.org for a wealth of information. Now I'm going to steal briefly a few slides from Specialized Care for Children, and please remember that I'm only going to gloss over some of the things that DSCC does, and I'm sure at later time, Gary will bring DSCC back on to further describe their role. But DSCC is the Children with Special Health Care Needs program. It's been around since 1937, and it serves children with a variety of special health care needs, and we'll talk about what eligible conditions are in just a minute. Their staff consists of nurses, social workers, speech and hearing consultants, meaning speech pathologists and audiologists, advanced practice nurses, respiratory therapists, and medical insurance specialists. They have regional offices across the state that you can see on the map, and I encourage each and every one of you to get familiar with an office that might be in your community or close by. Some of the core medically eligible conditions are listed here. Of course, what we're interested in tonight is hearing loss being one of the eligible conditions. It's medically eligible, and as we'll talk about in a moment, several years ago we were able to make the definition of hearing loss for early intervention and DSCC match. So it's the exact same definition, the exact same medical eligibility of hearing loss for both state agencies. And that's something we're actually quite proud of because previously early intervention did not acknowledge unilateral hearing loss. Here is the eligibility requirement. And as you can read on there, it's hearing loss of 30 decibels or greater at any two of the speech frequencies or 35 dB or greater at one of the speech frequencies. And that can be in one or both ears. Just to clarify, both early intervention and DSCC do have auditory neuropathy dysynchrony disorder as a medically eligible condition. There are so many different ways that DSCC can help, and I'm sure that we'll get the opportunity to share that with you more. But if you have families that aren't sure where to access diagnostic tests, they may need specialized medical care, they may need assistance utilizing and maximizing their insurance, DSCC is there to help. They also know about the resources in the community and are very creative in accessing those resources for families. Anybody can make a referral to DSCC. We encourage families to call, but you can also call or do a three-way call with a family and make the referral to DSCC. If you're not able to make the phone call or the family can't, you can also hop online and visit their website to submit a referral via their webpage. As I was talking about before, their program administrator at Central Office is Jerry Clark, and her contact information is listed here. The third agency that we have is Illinois Early Intervention, and as you guys know, early intervention serves children ages 0 to 3. This information that you see in front of you is taken directly from their website, and early intervention is helping children with disabilities or delays learn and grow. It's for children 0 to 36 months, and think of it more as developmental services where DSCC was medical services. But again, hearing loss falls into both domains and is eligible for both programs. Early intervention is also pretty easy to apply. You can go to their website. I suggest just Googling Illinois Early Intervention, and their website will pop up. But then you can find the office locator and find the office nearest you. You can also call their 800 number, but again, I would probably call the CSC closest to you, because sometimes that single phone number for early intervention can be difficult to navigate. Early intervention also has a clearinghouse if you're not familiar with it, but I'm sure you are, because I'm sure Carrie's shared that with you. They do have a lot of information up on their website and some good information to share with families, so I invite you to check that out. Finally, with early intervention contracts for all of their service providers, and they do that through Illinois Early Intervention Provider Connections. If you need to find a service provider in your area, you can go out to Provider Connections to find a list of people, and then you can also find more information if you yourself are interested in being a service provider. Okay, so I'd like to try to demystify a little bit of what happens with the 3 state agencies and who does what. So I made my 3 circles. I was doing pretty good to get 3 circles the same size. The orange circle that you see on the screen is going to represent Illinois Department of Public Health. Predominantly, or primarily, we deal with screening and the data system for tracking and referrals. DSCC, the blue circle, primarily deals with diagnosis and medical issues. The green circle, early intervention, primarily deals with intervention or developmental issues. And both of the 2 circles on the top, DSCC and early intervention, deal with care coordination or care management. But what I really wanted to show you in this slide is give you the visual that none of us act in isolation, none of us are a silo, and we overlap to a great extent into each other's areas. The other part I wanted to share with you is probably the most connected of the agencies to their community partners is DSCC. The regional offices in the community are directly under the Division of Specialized Care for Children. In early intervention, the Child and Family Connection offices are in the community, but they're individual contracts for services. So every 3 or 5 years, depending on the contract, those providers may change, and that's a big difference between EI and DSCC. And then finally, probably the most separate from our community providers, although not totally separate, is IDPH and the local health departments. We do work in tandem, but they are separate entities. So I'm going to pause there and see if anybody has any questions about the general overview of the 3 state agencies and how we work together for the EHDI program. Feel free to either type a question in the chat or just jump off of mute and ask. Anything's fair game. Okay, well, I'll move on to the next section. As I said before, we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit because I really wanted to jump into some data and show you what's been happening in the last actually 13 years. It's kind of crazy to think our children who first went through the newborn hearing screening program are now in junior high. So all of those babies in 2003 that were screened are now 13 years old in junior high and hopefully had positive outcomes for our early identification and intervention. Before we jump into the data, as the top left cartoon shows, it says before I write my name on the board, I'll need to know how you're going or how you're planning to use the data. So that comment is really just to ask you that you not replicate, duplicate, or distribute any of the data that we're showing in this presentation today without contacting Department of Public Health for permission. The pink slide, using data to make decisions, what a novel idea. That really demonstrates the fact that the EHDI program since 2009, when Carrie got roped into being part of our quality improvement team, have really been trying to use our data to drive the improvements that we have. Not every improvement that we work on costs money to the state. Sometimes it just costs time and people getting involved to give their opinion. So I'm hoping that each of you, after hearing today's presentation, will be interested in getting involved, giving your opinion, and letting us know how you think we need to shape the future of the EHDI program. And then finally, I can prove or disprove it. What do you want me to do? And that's the final cartoon. Any of the data that we show you today, I could flip it one of two ways. I could tell you how wonderful we're doing or where we still need for improvement. So please remember that as we walk through the slides. If you want to know more about actually how we do the hospital-based screening or some of the protocols we use for screening, I strongly encourage you to go out to infanthearing.org and participate in the 2-hour newborn hearing screening training curriculum. This is something that Illinois actually helped develop with the National Center of Hearing Assessment and Management, and Illinois has had over 800 stakeholders participate in this activity. Research has shown that this single element helps level the education or the knowledge base of newborn hearing screening providers from prior pre-test to post-test. So it's a very valuable tool so that I no longer have to drive all over the state and train people personally. It's a tool that we can use so that Isha and I can help hospitals learn more about the EHDI program. If you're in social work, audiology, or related fields, the newborn hearing screening training curriculum has been approved for 2 hours of CEUs, and those are provided free to you. So that may be something that interests you as well. All right, next slide. So since 2004, Illinois has been over the target of a 95% screening rate. What you can see on the screen here is our screening rate for the last couple years. We're over 98% now, and the final remaining about 1.5% accounts for 0.5% of home births, 0.5% of babies who pass away prior to hearing screening, and then 0.5% of babies who are discharged prior to the newborn hearing screening. So we're right on target and we're doing well, and the yellow star indicates the data is still coming in. Now the slide on the bottom is showing you the last 3 years, 2013, 14, and 15, and what our refer rate is. So how many babies get screened in the hospital and do not pass? Well, for an effective program, that number needs to be between 1% and 4%. Currently, Illinois is at about 3.1 to 3.2%, right on target, but as we've gotten better at training individuals and showing them their own data through report cards, they have done some quality improvement and dropped the refer rate by almost 0.5%, which we feel like is a positive change. Again, if you don't know about newborn hearing screening, just want to let you know that there's 2 ways Illinois allows newborn hearing screening to be completed. One is through automated auditory brainstem response, and that's a screening or testing technology that goes from the outer ear all the way to the level of the lower brainstem. The other way that is allowable in our birthing hospitals is to do otoacoustic emissions. This testing tests from the outer ear to the level of the cochlea. So I just wanted to differentiate those two, and many of you are probably already putting together the fact that if we screen with otoacoustic emissions, we may be missing kids that have auditory neuropathy to synchrony disorder. In Illinois, due to the Joint Committee on Infant Hearing statement that comes out and says the only technology that should be used in a NICU, or neonatal intensive care unit, is automated ABR. And our hospitals have really been taking that to heart, and we're seeing a shift in the type of screenings that are done. Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've dropped almost 10,000 infants per year being screened with OAEs. So that number is dropping on the inpatient level. However, we're seeing an increase of using otoacoustic emissions outpatient. So you may find follow-up screeners, physicians, or even audiologists that are seeing a child who was screened with automated ABR inpatient, and they're being screened with otoacoustic emissions outpatient. So again, we want all the parents always be good consumers of the type of follow-up testing that they're having done. If a parent ever comes to you and says, well, they said my baby passed, but I still think there's a problem, then these are some of the questions you may want to ask. But above all else, after so many years of doing this, I'll tell you a parent's intuition is what I'd hang my hat on more than anything else. If a parent believes there's a problem, there may likely be, and we should always do complete pediatric diagnostic testing. In Illinois, our hospitals are required to report to the Department of Public Health every 7 days. Since I joined the team in July of 2014, we have moved to a web-based reporting system. This allows a lot more transparency between the department and the birthing hospitals, as well as increases the time that results are reported to the Department of Public Health, i.e. it's much faster. After Public Health finds out about a child who does not pass newborn hearing, we send a letter to the parent and the physician. If the baby hasn't been resolved, meaning follow-up testing hasn't been completed, then we send letters to the parent and physician again at 30 days of age. If we continue to not have resolution for the infant at 60 days of age, we send a letter again to the parent, physician, and local health departments. So you can see we're a very heavily weighted letter-based program. We're working on changing that, but the letters that you see here are part of our administrative rules, and we are required to send those out. The last part there, the point I wanted to make too with these letters that go to parents and physicians is Sherry and the other team have been most generous in giving us feedback on letters throughout the years. So you may see the opportunity in the future, hopefully near future, to again give us feedback on how the letters should read and the information that should be sent to parents to help call them to action. Finally, after a child has a confirmed hearing loss, Public Health does send a letter to the parent, the physician, early intervention, specialized care for children, and family case management. Through our collaborations with all of you, we've developed a confirmed hearing loss packet that is a very simplified set of information that is sent to every parent. And I want to assure you that the Guide by Your Side brochure is in every single packet that we send to parents of children with a newly confirmed hearing loss. Okay, some of the problems we have with sending letters is I can't believe how transient some families are with a newborn baby. I could barely get up every morning with a newborn baby or know what day of the week it was. But we have families that are moving across the state or even across the country, which makes it problematic to find them. We also have a problem with parents telling us who the baby's doctor will be after discharge. The Healthcare and Family Services, or Medicaid agency, allows a family up to 90 days after discharge to pick a primary care doctor. Well, as you know, that's way too late in our process. So we need to help parents understand before they ever deliver a child, they need to know who the primary care doctor will be for the baby. Over the last year, we've been actually blessed to have access to the immunizations registry that helps us update addresses and primary care doctors. We have been able to partner with all of you to do some community outreach, and we've also had the project that Specialized Care for Children and ISHA have been able to take forward of having OAE hearing screening equipment in some of the local health departments. We're going to keep moving on the interest of time here. And I just want to share with you a little bit about confirmed hearing losses. So in the state of Illinois, you can see for the number of children who are reported to the state, here's the breakdown of hearing loss by year. And this is including unilateral or bilateral hearing loss. And again, unilateral and bilateral are both medically acceptable or medically acknowledged by early intervention and DSCC as eligible conditions. What you can see at the very bottom of this graph, though, is there's a set of other undetermined or unreported type of hearing loss or degree of hearing loss. The problem is very often audiologists report the first hearing test to the Department of Public Health, but never report the final or confirming hearing loss. So a family goes in, they have their first test, the audiologist says, well, I think there's this type of hearing loss, but come back, we'll test one more time to be sure. Well, that follow-up testing never gets reported to public health. So you need to be a good consumer of data and realize there are large pieces of data that aren't reported to us. So if you have your audiologist that you go to or your family goes to, please encourage them to always send all reports for all children to the Department of Public Health for newly confirmed hearing losses. I personally would like to see children with newly confirmed hearing loss up through age 6 sent to public health so that we can help with the transition from Part C, 0 to 3, all the way up through the Part B services and having children ready to go at school age. Here's the thing that has changed since I started in the EHDI program. We used to see about a third of all the children reported to public health had a unilateral hearing loss. By most recent data for the last 3 years, half of the children have unilateral, half of the children have bilateral hearing loss. Now this can be kind of confusing, and I'm sure Carrie's had presenters that are audiologists talk about some of these issues, but there's a wide variety in how you treat unilateral hearing loss out there. There isn't just one way. But I wanted to raise your awareness that half of the kids that you're going to have cross your path have a unilateral hearing loss instead of bilateral. Now, for a little bit of the somber news, Illinois has had one of the highest loss to follow-up rates in the country for several years. Now, this is a loss to follow-up as calculated by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and there's a unique algorithm that goes into that. So please don't think that we lose 80% of all the children who do not pass newborn hearing screening. We have this 80% loss to follow-up based on the unique algorithm, but the exciting fact that I want you to know is we have dropped that number from 81% down to 55% as of today when I pulled the data for 2015. What you can see on the screen are the absolute numbers, but again, the overall picture I want you to see is our loss to follow-up is on the decrease, but we still have about 1,000 families that we have trouble reaching. We're not sure if there are issues with them trusting a state agency, if there's issues with language and communication, if there's issues with them moving, issues with education. We honestly feel like it's a mix of many of these issues. This slide's showing you the importance of reporting to public health. Unfortunately, when we rely solely on the Child and Family Connection offices to report to public health, it looks like only 29% of all of our kids are reported as having IFSP dates or IFSP in place for services. When we do a cross-check with the Bureau of Early Intervention, like we did in 2013, we find that Illinois actually is sitting at about 74%, which is about 8% above the national average. So when I ask where our gaps are, we're doing great at screening, and we're actually doing pretty darn well at early intervention since that's a parent choice program, but our biggest loss is in the middle, loss to follow-up, is getting children into diagnosis, getting them from not passing newborn hearing screening into the diagnostics with an audiologist. We do expect 2014 and 2015 data to come up once we do our cross-check with the Bureau of Early Intervention, and we do now have an IGA, which is considered a intergovernmental agreement or a memorandum of understanding, and we're trying to work on an automated way that early intervention can let the EHDI program know of all the children who have IFSPs. But in the interim, I appreciate every single one of you who helps Carrie by getting those release of information forms so that she can share the information with us. All right, we're going to break there for a second. Any questions? Well, hopefully I'm not putting everybody to sleep. Anybody have any questions up to this point? Okay. Again, being conscious of the time, what I want you to know is that ever since 2009, Illinois has been dedicated to using a quality improvement model. So instead of Ginger thinking something's a wonderful idea and that's how we are going to change the EHDI system, we actually do small tests of change. To help you understand small tests of change, I would really, really appreciate each and every one of you taking 11 minutes and 8 seconds out of your life to watch the YouTube video that explains quality improvement. I think whether it's your personal life or professional life, you can relate to the fact that it's easier to try something for a week than to revamp something or make a whole new plan that you've never tested and only hope that it works. So I'm going to keep moving forward. And again, we can talk more later about quality improvement, but I just want to share that general concept with you that in everything we do, we create an aim statement. We try to decide what we're trying to accomplish. Then we decide, well, how will we know if the change we make is really an improvement? And then we look at ways or strategies that we can make that improvement. So just take a second and think about something in your personal life. What are you trying to change? So for us in the EHDI program, one of our most recent projects was that we did want to reduce the loss to follow-up, but we wanted to reduce the loss to follow-up through working with the local or community health departments. So we took a look at how many kids do we refer to the local health department? How many children do we want found of the children that we refer to the local health department? That was our measurement. And then we started coming up with strategies. How can we help the local health department help the families to get their follow-up appointments? And we tried several strategies. Some of them absolutely bombed, and some of them had very, very high success. But again, that's just a general idea of how quality improvement works. The other thing I wanted to share with everybody today, again, not to get into the details, but the neat thing that has happened in 2014, a statement was put out as an addendum to the Joint Committee on Infant Hearing statement that started setting goals and targets and expectations related to early intervention for our children with hearing loss. In Illinois, we worked with developmental therapists, and we asked them to put all these different goals that are listed in the JCIH statement in order of importance and then in order of feasibility for the state. There actually wasn't a huge difference in the top 3 between those 2 lists. But again, what I want to drive home is we are committed in the EHDI program to create change and to create improvement even if there's not funding for it, even if there's not a budget, even if. So when we start sending emails to Carrie and asking for some of you to participate, we hope that you'll come to the table and help us create change, even though we're facing some adversity in the state right now. You can read on the slide, or you can read it later. I can send you the handouts of what our developmental therapist sample thought were the most important things for us to address first out of that JCIHEI statement, and then what they thought were most feasible. Another frontier that we're trying to work towards, and we hope to get started this summer at looking at how we can implement, is the NECAP project. In short, very, very brief, what we want to do is make available to families in Illinois the ability to have their child tested with standardized tools and compared to other children with a hearing loss, and all types of hearing loss. So if your child has a moderate bilateral hearing loss, we can do a standardized set of tools that have social, emotional, psychological, language assessments, and we can compare them to other children across the country with a moderate bilateral hearing loss. We hope that that'll help families to develop their IEPs, develop their personal goals. But again, if you get the chance, take a look at the NECAP project, and hopefully we'll share some more about that this summer or fall. Any questions so far on that? Quiet group tonight. I hope that's not a bad sign. All right. Just to finish up, another FYI is in the fall, this is the power of a parent. And I hope that each of you realize you have that same power. And there was a parent in Illinois that went to a legislator and said, I believe in doing something about cytomegalovirus, or CMV. And the short version is this parent worked with legislators, brought forth legislation that was now effective January 1st of 2016. And what that legislation says is that we need to raise awareness of pregnant women about cytomegalovirus and the possibility of contracting it, as well as we need to give parents the opportunity to test for CMV if they so choose in the first 21 days of life. So there's some more detail in that, but the graphic that you're seeing on the screen right now shows that the incidence of cytomegalovirus as a cause for hearing loss in our children is much higher than what we once thought. And a mom can contract cytomegalovirus or during pregnancy, or she could have contracted it years ago and been in the shedding phase, kind of like shingles or chickenpox during her pregnancy, and the child can be positive for cytomegalovirus that has many developmental concerns, one of being hearing loss. So if you'd like a little bit more to learn about CMV, I have some references here, but happy to talk to you more about that as well. And I think just the overview of current projects, and again, another day, I think Isha will share more detail on these, but letting you know, we're still working on monitoring for progressive or late onset hearing loss through the ECHO project, Early Childhood Hearing Outreach Project. We believe that every child from 0 to 3 should have their hearing screened annually when they're in home visiting or parent-to-parent, parents as teacher programs, because the incidence of hearing loss by some reports can up to triple prior to school age. So 2 to 3 per 1,000 at birth, but some research shows that it could be 6 to 9 by the time the child reaches school age. We're also working on otoacoustic emissions in the local health departments. As you see there, those are some of the local health departments who currently have OAE equipment that was provided by DSCC. We're also always working on changing the EHDI brochures and the EHDI roadmap. There are new ones of those if you haven't seen it. We're lucky that the Valiant family continues to be our go-to models on our brochures. We also work on our confirmed hearing loss packets, and your input on what should be included in those is very important. As I told you, we're working on web-based reporting. We're also working on integrating with vital statistics or birth certificates so that we can account for every single baby born in the state of Illinois, not just those reported by the hospitals. We're working on audiologist education, the use of EHDI Pals, which is a resource for parents to find providers in their area who have the skill set and the equipment to provide the needed testing that is appropriate for a child of many different ages from 0 to 5. We're also working and collaborating with Carla Geese on a physician task force of trying to educate physicians. If you have any ideas of how to educate physicians, let us know, because very honestly, that's a tough group for us to do outreach to. We're also very proud of all the work you guys do to do the Illinois EARS newsletter, and the EHDI program supports that, as well as I think you guys know that the Illinois EHDI program provides a significant amount of funding for the Guide by Your Side program. The largest bulk comes out of the HRSA grant, and that's over at Specialized Care for Children. That's something that back in 2006, 2007, I had the honor of working towards, and in 2009 it became something that we were able to fund and move forward with. So I'm very happy to be part of that startup crew. All right. Just to let you know, we always promote Hands and Voices and Guide by Your Side in every presentation that we do. So those were just examples of the slides that we bogart from Carrie and use in all of our presentations to get the word out about everybody. And the last slide is our contact information. Again, I can get you a handout if that's much easier. And I apologize, I forgot, the very last slide is one that Carrie asked me to share, and maybe she can help chime in on this one. But just to let you know that every so many years, the federal government has to reauthorize early hearing detection and intervention legislation, meaning reauthorize the appropriation of funding to support the grants that support our program. The original authorization started funding in '99, so we've had a very long run, 17 years of funding, and this year we're up for authorization again. The authorization passed through the House. It's currently in the Senate, and to put it very simply, this is the first year I've ever gone to the National EHDI Conference, and they've said that there is a possibility that we will not be reauthorized, that we will not get our funding renewed. So we need to keep that in mind, and Carrie, maybe you can comment a little bit more about that.
Yeah, this is Carrie. This is a really not good thing, guys. So once we hear more, and I know Hands and Voices headquarters is also on this. They had some meetings while they were at the EHDI conference too. And so with this, if reauthorization doesn't happen, and that means funding for EHDI programs doesn't happen, which means if there's no funding for EHDI programs, there potentially could be no follow-through for those families to get screened, which then could be that screening doesn't happen. And where would we be then? 17 years of work down the tubes. So this is really, really important. We all have to keep fingers, toes, legs, everything crossed and hope that we hear some better news down the pike. But please know that if we do have a call for action, I will be reaching out to you guys, and of course we'll be reaching out to families to make some noise and get this thing through the Senate.
So I know it's late, guys, and I know we got started a bit late, but let me just do the final call for questions. Melissa, yes, I will. I'll send a handout of tonight's PowerPoint slides to Carrie and ask her if she'll be nice enough to pass those on to you guys. Everybody should please feel free to give me a call or email at any time. I think most of you even have my cell phone number. Please call or text. You know, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys. So whatever I can do, some days we get a little busier than others. So if I don't respond, it's not because I don't want to. Please bug me again, and hopefully I can, or tap me on the shoulder. It's never bugging. Please tap me on the shoulder again so I can get back to you, because, again, you guys are what drive the program. So last call, any questions? So my friends Eliza and Allie and Jacqueline, was there any new information tonight that we were able to cover that maybe you didn't hear before?
This is Allie. I didn't know the 50% thing with the unilateral.
Good.
And this is Jacqueline. I agree with you, Allie. I wasn't aware of that either. I was surprised to hear that it was that high.
Any of the newer guides, was there anything that jumped out at you that really stood out as a new bit of information that was helpful tonight?
This is Melissa A. I agree with Allie and Jacqueline. I wasn't aware that the unilateral was as high as it is.
Does it make a little bit more sense now how the three state agencies come together?
Yes.
This is Carrie. I have one more thing to just throw out there regarding this reauthorization for EHDI. One of the things that I had seen was a post that was put on Facebook by a parent of an article that was put out, I believe, by NAD, and they are actually pushing to get it under Department of Education. And can you just imagine our Department of Education being in charge of EHDI? So this is kind of how crazy it is right now, and the reason being is that they believe that EHDI should focus on language development. So again, if you see things like this out there, just, you know, keep your eyes open.
Well, I want to thank you guys so much for your time tonight. I know Carrie's going to go into the final post-test questions, or maybe Melissa will take you to those. Know that Isha was on the phone tonight. I think she's been a little bit under the weather, so we didn't put her on the spot, but she's always there to hear from you guys and to answer questions as well. Her contact information will be in the slides that we send to you. But both of us want to thank you very, very much for your time tonight and letting us share. Isha and I both have taken the jobs that we've taken because we believe in EHDI, and you won't get us out of these jobs. I think we're gonna root here for quite a while. So if we can do something to help you, let us know. And Melissa, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Ginger. Carrie, are you ready for the post-test questions?
Yep.
Okay, number 1, Illinois EHDI is responsible for hearing screening, audiological diagnosis, and intervention, i.e. 1, 3, 6. Which of the following choices shows the state agency who is responsible for each part of the EHDI system in the correct order? Screening, diagnosis, intervention. A, early intervention, Illinois Department of Public Health, then Division of Specialized Care for Children. B, Illinois Department of Public Health, Division of Specialized Care for Children, then Early Intervention. C, Division of Specialized Care for Children, Illinois Department of Public Health, then Early Intervention. D, Division of Specialized Care for Children, Early Intervention, then Illinois Department of Public Health. Number 2, true or false? In the state of Illinois, 50% of all cases of hearing loss reported are unilateral hearing losses. However, all state agencies do not cover services for unilateral hearing loss. Number 3, currently, Illinois has a high percentage of noncompliance or loss to follow-up for which of the following? A, birth to inpatient hearing screening. B, not passing inpatient hearing screening to diagnosis. C, confirmed hearing loss to enrollment in early intervention. D, both B and C. What was the first full year of mandated newborn hearing screening in the state of Illinois? A, 1999, B, 2002, C, 2003, D, 2004. A bonus for this question is also, so what grade are the children in who were screened during the first full year after that mandate, i.e. being 2006, answer above equals. True or false, number 5. Because Illinois EHDI is an unfunded mandate, the state cannot work on projects to improve outcomes for the patients, for the infants, and their families.